Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Overpriced JPEGs. I'm Carly Riley, and I am here with an incredibly special guest today. I have in person, in a studio, the one and only Danny Cole. I am so excited to talk to Danny. I'm sure everyone who's listening is familiar with Danny as the co-founder of the Creature World project and the artist behind it all. I've admired Danny for quite a while now and admired his work for quite a while. I'm a creature holder. It's on my Twitter page. So I really wanted to get inside Danny's brain, or I should say, I'm sitting here with him still. I would like to get inside Danny's brain. So that is what we are going to do here today. Right before we get started, here's a word from our sponsors.
RARIBLE is the NFT platform that's leading the charge into the multi-chain universe ahead of us. Available on Flow, Tezos, Polygon, and of course, Ethereum, RARIBLE is the perfect place for NFT newcomers, profile picture collectors, and experienced NFT traders. RARIBLE has a variety of NFT features that set it apart from other NFT marketplaces. They have a native messaging function allowing you to DM your friends or haggle with sellers. They also have a mobile app on iOS and Android with a built-in NFT portfolio tracker tool, so you can easily check the value of your digital art portfolio. RARIBLE is built on the RARIBLE protocol, a multi-purpose, open source, and community-governed NFT protocol that helps build products and services across the NFT ecosystem, including white label marketplaces tailored to specific NFT communities. So go to rarible.com and start discovering and trading NFTs, putting in floor bids to join PFP communities, and DM with some brand new internet friends. If you're starting on your NFT journey, you need MetaMask. This is your tool to unlock the world of DeFi and NFTs without giving up custody over your private keys. MetaMask is both a secure in-browser wallet and also a secure bridge for your hardware wallet so that you can connect to any Web3 enabled website. You can now trade tokens with any DEX or aggregator. MetaMask Swap gathers real-time pricing information across the DeFi exchange ecosystem, allowing you to select your best price while getting all of the MetaMask benefits of self-custody, lower gas costs, and increased transaction success rates. MetaMask also has a fantastic mobile wallet, which I use while I'm out and about. And I use it to collect POAPs, NFTs, and use it for all my DeFi things while I'm away from home. If you haven't downloaded MetaMask, you gotta try it out. Download MetaMask for desktop and mobile at metamask.io, or load up your Ledger, Trezor, Keystone, or Lattice hardware wallets so that they too can get into Web3.
Somebody was was levying a fair criticism of the Ape rollout. I've heard a couple different criticisms of it, but one of it was like, why wasn't distribution of ApeCoin tied to how long you've been holding a Bored Ape?
So, I'll tell you exactly why they wouldn't take that into account, because if you were taking into account how long somebody had held an ape for, that would be an incentive against market movement, which is something that benefits them. So it would be them stabbing themselves in the leg if they took that into account.
So, great point. Part of the reason I bring this up is Kevin Rose is launching Moonbirds, like the latest in his Proof Collective thing. Have you followed this? I know you're basically do art, so I don't know how much your heads up to the rest of the community.
I'm not gonna let you know if I know this or not, but I suggest that you explain it.
For the viewers that may not know.
They probably don't know anything,
It hasn't really, they've only done one Twitter space about it, but Kevin Rose, host of Proof, major both DeFi and NFT podcaster and investor. And he's launching Moonbirds, and this is a mechanism they're putting into place, which is that the longer you hold, there's going to be a staking mechanism. They're calling nesting because it's bird. The more you'll be rewarded. They're like, yeah, that goes counter to the us getting secondary sale piece, but it also is fewer flipping. It instills the community that we want to have. So it's like, what are you trying to optimize for?
There's something really, really odd here that is in the mix. What products outside of this space do we buy and then ask, what is this going to give me now? It's usually we're buying things and it's you get what you purchase. But as soon as it became the standard in the NFT space, and I'm not saying that this is entirely wrong, and I definitely I like to make products that just keep on giving, but it's odd to be in an ecosystem where every product is expected to keep on giving. And not only that, but more and more a standard has become not only should my product keep on giving to me, but actually it should pay me. I should be paid to buy this thing. It's like, yeah, I would love to buy a money printer too.
Yeah.
Like, is that legal? Am I allowed to buy that?
Yeah.
That would be great. It's really
it's hit an unsustainable point.
oh my goodness.
And I'm hearing this now from founders over and over again. Like the when utility meme is like a very lived reality for founders, and it's completely unsustainable. Like nothing is enough anymore. I'll give an intro to this podcast at some point, but let's just go with this. So how do you feel like it's evolved? Do you feel like when you launched Creature, there was that same level of pressure? Or when you launched Creature and when you were first getting into NFTs, did you feel like you could launch something with art sort of for the sake of the fact that it was art?
The space has developed and evolved a lot. When we launched Creature World, there had been sort of a number of OG projects that had come out, and the majority of them were not through the lens of this is art. A lot of them were much more adjacent to technology, to cryptocurrency, to finance, and yet we were still referring to a lot of it as art. And I'm not here to define what is art, but from just like a general consumer standpoint, a lot of it wasn't things that people would have looked at and been like, I understand this to be art. So when Creature World came in and was like, we are making an art project, that was different. And it got people very excited. I really feel like we were embraced with quite open arms for that. Yet at the same time, the market that we were engaging with, despite having experience buying products and engaging with products that feel so much like ours, for a lot of people, it was their first interaction with art. And it set us up for some very unique trials and tribulations when people grow accustomed to, I'm engaging with an NFT. What do I expect out of an NFT? And so much of what I preach is there is no singular, this is an NFT, in the same way that there is no singular, this is a physical good. You don't hear people being like, I'm into physical items. I like physical items, It's like, well, that can mean a whole lot of things. What kind of physical items are you into? It can mean an infinite amount of things. But obviously, everything is really closely tied together when it comes to NFTs because the space is so young, the technology is so young. We really have to work with each other and build off of each other's advancements, etc. So a whole lot of people who are doing a whole lot of different things are united by the technology that is powering all of these very, very different missions. And what we wind up is with this early culture of this is an NFT. This is an NFT. An NFT is about tokenomics if you talk to one person. An NFT is about DAOs if you talk to another person. No, an NFT is a digital product where your ownership of it is digital too. An NFT is a unique, indivisible item on a blockchain, whatever. An NFT is whatever you make as an NFT. But because of how tied together,
we've all sort of defined an NFT in this very nascent stage of what this is, but like to your point, we don't ask what's a physical item. I think about it all the time in the context of this podcast, which I have an NFT podcast, but that'll be absurd at some point because NFTs are in the sports world, they're in the music world, they're in the entertainment. Like they span all these industries, and that's already happening. But it's nascent enough that I can actually cover all of that. But at a certain point, that will no longer be the case.
Yes,
you know,
absolutely.
And that's what you're getting at.
100%. But the interesting thing about watching the space develop is because right now there is a space around NFTs. It's not around what are these specific products. There's a space around NFTs. Anything that is done in one area of NFTs is kind of encompassing of like, now this is a part of NFTs as a whole. So watching the space develop, there's nothing quite as exciting as, holy shit, I just got rich, for a lot of people. And that is, the biggest news stories about anything to do with NFTs. So when you have, first, people are like trying to wrap their heads around, what does it mean for me to own this JPEG? What does it mean for me to own this? Is it about bragging rights? Is it about investing? And then people come with an answer, because everybody wants to have an answer, because an answer is validity, that what I have is valuable. What's the answer? Utility. My image has utility. Okay. Well, what's the utility? And some of the earliest answers to that are, well, this image is valuable because it's tied to this other thing that I know is valuable. It is my access to this thing that we all know is valuable. So my image as access pass must be valuable. Does that mean your image is valuable, or does that mean that this other thing is valuable? It's your image is just a key to something valuable. You have a really expensive key that you've decorated in a very odd, seemingly not connected way. Okay. But people kind of take it a step further of like, we are going to do this, we're going to do that, be it, DAOs, tokens, until in comparison, all of these products that are really so different from each other, it can feel like, well, this thing that I bought that is in the same format as, an art piece, for example, is actually a money printer. How come my other thing isn't a money printer? And it's that's one part of the development of the space that I have seen. But it's not something that I don't understand, first of all. And I'm a human being. I have the same vulnerabilities as anyone else, where I'll see Bored Apes, but out of ApeCoin, I'm like, wish I had an ape right now.
Be real nice, be airdropped $100,000.
Yeah,
I'll feel real good.
Exactly. But it's just it's all very indicative of what are these early days of NFTs. And it's this very interesting moment of like, there actually is a thing of NFTs, and we have not lived during a time period. I'm not here to talk about history. I don't know much, but it's not like there's been a time period that I know of like, wow, like we're uniting around the early days of physical products. That's been around. It's a new frontier right now that's small enough for it to be very interconnected. And what does the future hold? Well, assuming that enough people see use cases for the underlying technology, which I do. And I believe if I see value in something, I'm not any different than you. I'm not any different than you. That there are other people that are going to see value. I think that the biggest the biggest shift ahead in the trajectory of NFTs is in the form of almost normalization, is in the form of more and more products being created as NFTs that aren't intended to exist as.
They're not being marketed as an NFT. It's just the technology is existing there in the background, and you may or may not even be aware that you're interacting with a blockchain.
If I had to learn all of the things that I had to learn to engage with NFTs in order to be on an iPhone, it would be much less likely that I would wind up owning an iPhone. Yeah.
You got your start. Were you on Super Rare? Was that I know before you launched Creature World, you had been in this space observing it, sort of as a participant, sort of as an observer for a little while at that point, right?
I was first introduced to NFTs in 2020. My introduction to NFTs set me on a very unique trajectory. The first thing that I wanted to know when I heard about NFTs was essentially, why are people valuing this? Why are people spending money on images?
As an artist, wasn't that somewhat intuitive for you?
Well, my first interest was not, how can I do this? It seemed pretty straightforward. How can I do this? You do it. I was just like, I want to understand what the appeal is for the people that are purchasing this. So I reached out to this guy who I was able to track down as being a really big collector of NFT artworks. And I came with the question, why do you buy this stuff? And instead of answering that question, which in the moment could have been frustrating, but it wasn't, what he did is he told me one after another about these different art pieces that he had and what he loved about them. And I walked away that night understanding this is not digital ownership. This is ownership. This is no different than anything else that I buy. And as I tried to explain this to some people, I used an analogy initially really focusing on, this is pre any real focus on utility, stuff like that. I explained to people, my favorite record that I own is Tapestry by Carole King. I have some contenders that follow it, but
best-selling album of all time at one point.
Really?
Yep.
As
I think
it should be.
Dethroned by Thriller, I believe. Or it dethroned Thriller.
Whatever it is, shout out Carole King.
Love it.
My favorite record I own is Tapestry by Carole King. I do not own a record player. And this record lives in a metal crate that I found in my father's childhood basement. I don't even have it on display. I own it. And it means so much to me that I have it. And that was my initial understanding of NFTs. It was not that this is as much about bragging rights, as people wanted to say, as much as about having a way to engage deeper with a product and have it be yours. So that was my initial understanding. And the more that I got into it, the more I saw potential for that unique relationship that you can have with something that's yours, where it's different because it's yours, that doesn't have to be some invisible thing. That doesn't have to be solely an emotional thing. There is this world of potential that kind of swept over me, where I have my eyes open wide and I'm like, whoa, we can make art that does very different things than a painting. We can make art that you are able to engage with very differently than a painting. And that was really appealing to me, because guess who doesn't really like paintings? It's me. I don't really like paintings.
Really?
Yeah, no, totally. And that's not to say, I like a lot of my paintings.
Yeah.
I do. And there are paintings that I've seen that I've loved, but with my relationship with a lot of the visual artwork that I've seen is like, I want to fall asleep. I'm bored. What do? I look at it. Cool. Now I've looked at it. What next? How do I engage with you? But I find an album, and it's this like fully immersive experience. It comes over me. It's incredible. And there's so many experiences. There's so many forms of creative output that really compel you so much.
You're making this point that I think is really interesting around the stagnant nature of paintings. And I think that's what when you say you don't like paintings, it sounds like it's sort of coming from that. So I want to ask you, there was a moment in Creature World where I think I'm not going to get the language exactly right. You can tell me, but it was like, I've solved NFTs, or like, I've sort of figured out how to explain why this is something.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think people maybe were confused by it. But I think it speaks this heart of suddenly art basically is no longer stagnant.
Yeah, absolutely.
And can you articulate some of that?
Like, I stand by every single thing I said, and but I just like to joke around, and things get things can get lost in translation.
Did you get backlash where people like, what was that a thing?
Oh my God.
Boy.
I would, if I had to guess how many people told me to kill myself.
I mean, I shouldn't act so shocked. I know what the internet is, but it's still so mind-boggling.
If I had to guess how many people wrote to me and said, "You're a piece of shit, you should go kill yourself," like some variation of that, it's in the thousands. Like, it was crazy.
So, okay, let's walk people through this. So you were you'd put out, I think, a letter on Twitter, and again, it was sort of on this theme of like, I've solved NFTs, which I have to say.
I didn't say that.
You didn't say that. You didn't say that. But you can tell me the exact language.
Yeah.
But for me, as somebody who hadn't even met you before, but had like, I'm in the Creature World community, like have a sense of you. I was like, you're you. Like, it felt very Danny Cole, and I feel like the vast majority of people were able to read that and be like, that's interesting. But you have a subset of people. So was it after that letter or after you announced what it was that people were really coming after you?
Okay, so let's give some context.
Let's give context.
So what I said was, the majority of people in the world do not understand, why should I own an NFT? Why should I own this? Why is this an NFT? And that this real gap in understanding is from this place, exactly what I'm talking about, of I don't understand how me owning this will allow me to experience it any differently outside of financially. And pair that with the majority of the world not being investors, not actually being interested in even being an investor because they're not qualified and understand that. People are like, it's not that people don't understand what an NFT is. Yeah. People do. People get it. They understand what an NFT is. They're just like, why in the world would I ever want to own this?
I think that's such a good point, because we're like, most people don't understand it. And I think it's like, no, they get it. They just don't get why it's interesting.
They don't get why they should want it.
Yeah.
And part of that is, we're talking about, I have this art piece. And I love this art piece. And people are like, haha, I just screenshotted the art piece. It's mine now too. And you had to pay money for it. And people's big argument was, well, I can sell it.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't give a fuck if you can sell it. Like, I just saw the art piece, you know? So what is an answer to that? You know, what is an answer to, no, my relationship with this art piece, not with this security, not with this financial vehicle. My relationship with this art piece is different. My experience of this art piece is different because it is mine. Well, I really disagree with this idea of assigning utility to things. Assigning utility to things, like, it's, you know, it screams, this thing that I have doesn't matter. So I'm
doesn't
going
inherently
to
have the utility, therefore I must attach
so I'm going
something
to attach something to it that I know that you see value in. It's like, cool, your thing is worthless. Like,
it's an overpriced JPEG.
Exactly. I sincerely care about the art that I'm making. I care about the creatures. I care about the creature world. And as an artist, my goal is to bring people into that world of the artwork. I want people to, I want people to be able to, like, get lost in something.
So what you did, and because I think what you did is really cool, and there's actually a profound point here that I think may have gotten lost to folks in the hullabaloo of both this space and people backlashing or whatever.
Well, a lot of people understand it now.
Okay, I think people do too, but I think it's worth saying for people who weren't following along at the time, which was, you basically had these various journeys that the creatures could go on, and it was, you know, on your desktop, wherever, and then depending on how that played out, the creature itself evolved and the art evolved, and there were mouths, and the look of the creature changed. To your point, now suddenly you have a piece of art that is evolving with you as a person and is evolving with based on your experiences. That's something that a painting on the wall can't do. And it's, to your point, it's fundamental within the piece. You're not assigning certain value to it. It's sort of happening naturally, not probably the right word because you're doing it. But I think that's really cool. Do you have anything you want to say on that? Did I articulate that properly? How would you describe it?
I can articulate it in a very, like, straightforward way. I have an art piece. I'm able to go inside of the world within my art piece. We made these 3D immersive environments where people could enter the creature world from the perspective of their creature. And you land in the creature world, you know, this world inside of your artwork, and you go on an adventure. And the big thing is that there were many outcomes to the adventure that you go on, and based on which path you took, your art piece would update and become this more deliberate reflection of you.
Yeah.
Now, to me, the place that comes from is, I think a lot of artists have this experience of discovery through the act of creation. I know I initially considered painting to be this experience of the first time I met myself. That makes you want to cry. It's like, I felt like I never had a way to embrace myself, to have a conversation with myself. And then through the act of creation, all of a sudden I'm like, I'm having a conversation with me. I'm learning who I am, and that's helping me to love myself. Well, I had the opportunity as a result of this technology to put other people in those shoes and say, well, you have an art piece that is magical. You have an art piece that is magical. And as you go and exist as your creature, your artwork is going to be this reflection of you because you chose to engage with it.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you know, why own this? Why should I own this art piece? How is it any different if I own it? well, look what I can do. I'm making it.
You can become a co-creator in the art. What I love about it too, it's for the same reason that I really like Space Doodles and found that interesting, because we speak a lot about digital identity in this space and NFTs as a reflection of digital identity. But I think what you're doing, what you did there, what Space Doodles did, are starting to show the mechanisms by which these can become identities that are as dynamic as we are as people, right? Like one ape is a silly way to, demonstrate our digital identity. And I get excited about this kind of stuff because it reminds me that we're in the very early stages of playing with what all this will become down the line. And that pushing of the lines, I think, is really interesting.
Yeah, there's honestly so many things to delve into here. One thing that I would love to touch on is, what was the reaction to the release of The Creature's Journey, and why? And there's not one reaction, and there's not one answer why. Overall, initially, there was.
Let me ask this: when did Creatures come out?
Creatures
Explain
came out
that for folks.
in August.
August 2021, and from day one, you were like, there's a journey, and you had it planned early. I'm sure things are evolving, but like you had some plans for the journey that the creature world and the creature holders and creatures would be going on. So that was August of this project. So when you talk about the reactions, would love to like kind of ground people in where in the timeline you're talking about as you're talking about those reactions.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, there's so many factors that I'm not going to be able to touch on every single one. But one component of reactions was a result of the space that we were operating in, which is when you tell people, I have something amazing. I have something amazing that we're going to do. And when a lot of other people that are doing very different things that you are grouped with, their version of something amazing is, I'm going to pay you.
Yeah, I'm going to make you a lot of money.
What we have here is something a little bit less tangible, a little bit harder, perhaps a lot bit harder to grasp. And then what we also have here is, sincerely, I'm not saying that, first of its kinds are better, but trying ground that hasn't really been tried. And what we had here was an experiment. A successful experiment is an experiment that you actually just execute and collect data from. So to me, it's, the most amazing success. I learned so much about how I could accomplish immersing people in a journey of discovery better for just trying something. And I'm going to try something again and again and again. And every single time, I'm going to look in the mirror and I'm going to be like, I hate you. I hate
Why
you.
did you put me through this?
I'm going to look in the mirror. I'm going to be like, I hate you. Now let's try it. There was a very interesting component of the mix that, and again, I'm not touching on everything, but I'm touching on the things that I care the most about. One thing that I really felt firsthand was getting things is very fun, is very exciting. Change is very scary.
Yeah. So why do you say getting things?
if you give me a gift,
Yep.
you're like, if you're like, Danny, I got you a new car. I'm like, damn, that's so sick. Now, imagine you come over and you're like, Danny, it's your birthday. You know what I got you? I completely remodeled your car's interior and exterior. I'm like, what the fuck? Wait. Like, I don't know if I'm ready for that. Like, I feel like I got to know my car as it is.
Yeah. But so what are you tying this to? It sounded like almost you had the experience of getting a thing and then we're in the experience of having to change.
So I thought it was funny to make a really big deal out of the first change of the creatures as a result of your journey being as simple as the expression of its mouth and going so over the top on that.
Hyping it
up.
up.
Posting memes being like, we had horse-drawn carriages. Now we have the Tesla. We have, this was the creature. What's it gonna be now? Like being like, this is the single greatest innovation of artwork that has ever happened, for it to be the change of a mouth. Because it really wasn't about.
And that is funny.
Changing. Yeah, no, I thought it was hilarious.
That is very funny.
A lot of people
You're like,
didn't. But like also, I'm gonna do it again.
Yeah.
So.
Well, how much of this too is I think about the journey of creatures. You launch in August. I think it was very shortly after launch that GaryVee started talking about your project.
Yeah, it was like day 2.
The day. And I'm sure that was awesome and you're glad for it. But that probably did attract people to your community that like they weren't attracted for it based on what you had been saying or, what you had been kind of putting out in the world. They were attracted to it because they were like, oh my God, GaryVee is going to make me money. I want to go buy this thing so it'll make me money.
Sometimes you enter a room for one reason, and then you discover your real purpose for being there. People are not set in stone in what they appreciate, in what they're looking for out of something. And we are all united in our humanity. We are all emotional beings. That's all we're here for, to experience emotion. So sure, some people came into Creature World and were like, I want an investment. And for some people, that priority was so high up on the list that they were like, I think I want to put my money into a Ponzi scheme because I know that if I'm early to a Ponzi, it's going to be really profitable.
Yeah.
And power to them.
Yeah.
But there are, I think that there are a lot of people that came into Creatures that might have come in initially and been like, I want what I think an NFT is going to be. And then they learned what Creatures were and they were like, wow, this is a different experience.
Yeah.
And
I love Creature World. I will say, like, as somebody who also isn't like a painting person and has never been like, I'm much more of an auditory. I love music, sort of probably less visual. Creature World was the first project for me where I was like, oh, like I get this art thing, like I was like, it made me feel something. And I just interviewed Fuo, who I think I mentioned to you. Fuocious mentioned that I just interviewed him, and I have a similar feeling with Fuo's work. Like both of you produce work where I'm like, it makes me get why people buy art. And I hold creatures and I'm, a big fan. So
thank you.
I love that. I'm not surprised that other people kind of like me have had that experience of being like, I'm here because I like this feeling, and it is a different kind of project, and you're pushing the boundaries in a whole bunch of ways technically as well, which we've obviously started to get into.
And we'll get into all that. Thank you so much. Fuocious is here to change the world.
Yeah.
And it's an honor to be spoken about in the same breath as people that I look at as like you're you're going to save somebody's life.
Yeah.
You know, like that's the way that I look at Ferocious. But I want to quickly finish one point about change, and then I'm super excited to delve into so much else. You know, so I make this whole big deal out of something amazing is about to happen, and for the result of it to really be like the only different thing that you're going to walk away with is that your creature's mouth is different. But that's not really the product. The product is the way that you're engaging with art. It's, you know, the path of engagement with art.
Well, the way art is engaging with you, I think that's what it is it changes it to make it a two-way street as opposed to one way.
100%. So I do it. I do the product that I made. And 20 seconds before the journey closes and every change is set in stone, I changed my creature back to the original creature. Change is scary. And I recognize that there is that component of this isn't an easy way to learn. It puts you through these, like, the uncertainty of, like, you know, you encounter an art piece and it feels like this must be the way it is for a reason, even though in actuality the assembly of all of these art pieces was done by a random algorithm. But I look at them and I'm like, it was this way when I saw it, and that's how it's supposed to be. And for me to come in and change that, I know how human I am. And human we use in this language as synonymous with imperfect. You know, the human touch is imperfection. And I'm like, do I want to take something that when I found it, it was perfect, and turn it into this unknown of, is this how it should be? And it's amazing that some people have the certainty of saying, this is how it should be. I'm not one of those people.
Well, what's so interesting about hearing that you didn't change, you ultimately kept the creature the way it was, is even that, though, to me speaks to why NFTs, using the broad sense of it, are valuable, because we get attached to them, right? Like that, what that also demonstrates is an attachment you had to this work of art, right? Like the way you have an attachment to tapestry, you know, and to your record. And all of that, I'm finding that now, like I got into this as a curiosity and not like, oh, I'm a, you know, and VFriend was my first NFT that of course went way up in value very quickly, which is a very fast way to get very interested in something to the point you made.
I got 2 VFriends.
Yeah, me too, man. I was so close. Well, we won't even go there.
So
Infinite regret. I was so close to getting a gift go, and then my money was getting locked up in Coinbase. I haven't really told this story before. Anyway, but the point being, and like now I'm somebody who's like attached to my NFTs and can't sell ones even when they go up, because I'm like, but I love them. And that's really cool.
For me, it's really important to make a product for people where the reward, the benefit of having it is actually the experience of having it, not the experience of calling the right moment to get rid of it,
exiting it,
you know. And it's an interesting place to be when, as a result of market demand, the entry to a lot of this is so, you know, like exponentially higher than what these items were sold for, and how that has to be taken into account now of like, you know, you're going to have to change and correct course based on the understanding that there are people buying this stuff for a lot more money now.
So let's take it back. Where did you grow up?
I grew up, I'm afraid of people on the internet because when I put out Creature World, somebody recorded my voice on a Twitter space and fed it to one of those algorithms that allows you to like make it sound like somebody's saying anything, and then tracked down my grandmother and called her using my voice and said that I was in a lot of trouble and that I had hit somebody with my car and that she could not call my mom and I needed $20,000 immediately. And please don't tell anyone. And also that I'm in the hospital right now. And my grandma was like, holy fuck. She's crying. She doesn't know what to do. And she calls my aunt, not my mom. And she's like, I just got this call from Danny and I don't know what to do. And she's like, I guess I have to like rush to the bank and like try to like get him some money to help. And my aunt calls me and she's like, and I answer it because I don't really like, I don't know. My phone is ringing all the time, but it's very rare that I get a call from my aunt.
Mm-hmm.
And I answer it and I'm like, hey, what's up? And she's like, where are you right now? It's like, I'm like working. And she was like, so you're not like in a hospital or anything? I was like, no. I'm like, and I found out what happened and I was like, damn, people are crazy.
So yeah, I mean, if you don't want to share details, you don't share anything. Let me just say, like, that's insane.
Yeah.
How are you doing? Like, how do you feel on a day-to-day level?
Well, so I'll answer that.
Okay.
But I'll tell you, I grew up in a really small town with a population of like 5,000 people.
Okay.
Can
you give us a state? Or are you comfortable giving a
yeah,
state?
Yeah. I grew up in a really small town in New Jersey with a population of like 5,000 people. Did
you go back ever?
Very rarely. Very, very rarely. I'll tell you a few stories that really are everything that anybody needs to know. When I was very young, my mother would play guitar. She would play guitar and I would stomp around like a little dinosaur and make up stories in real time to go along with the music. I went to preschool in what I now know to be the basement of a church, which I didn't at the time know. I just thought it was like preschool, you know?
Yeah, it's where I show up every day. They walk me here and here I am.
Yeah, exactly. And the preschool activities that they had for us were, we could play with shaving cream, we learned how to cook, and we could finger paint. And
what cooking are they having? Are you doing it for?
Well, there was this lady named Granny, and she was the oldest teacher in all of New Jersey. And she taught us how to cook. I didn't retain any of those skills. So I would finger paint. And I started finger painting this character, like a self-portrait. And I was lucky enough that drawing that picture became muscle memory to me at such a young age, that when you get older and you perhaps lose some of the wonder of being a kid, stomping like a T-Rex, telling your stories, you know, when that feeling subsides and you learn a little bit more about what the world is, which my mother tried so hard to make sure I would learn at the latest age possible. There was something that I had also learned, which was the muscle memory of drawing this picture. And I kept on doing it. And I kept on doing it. And that is the creature. That is the creature. That's the same thing that I draw today.
You said that the first time you painted, it helped you understand yourself or put you in touch with yourself. Was that as young as preschool where you... Okay.
Because the thing is, I didn't think of that as painting. That muscle memory of drawing this being kept me in touch with this amazement, this divinity of the world that we're all born with, of anything that you see is just filled with possibility. And even though my relationship with it continued on throughout the years in this form of muscle memory, in this form of just drawing this picture without really giving any thought to it, it was this tie, it was my only tie, where I was holding on to something. And when I went and said, I'm going to try to make a painting, I was 17.
Wow, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, you're 45, but.
Yeah. I look phenomenally young for my age because I follow all of GaryVee's Instagram post advice. There's, actually, I'll out myself for a second. There, and then and this is gonna, whatever. I'll go back to this. But a friend of mine runs this. You have to have her on, Devin.
Oh, okay.
She runs this thing, Mad Realities.
Oh, yeah, the reality show. Oh my God, yeah, I would love to.
But she's actually like a genius.
Yeah.
Like, she's probably probably the smartest person in the space, like genuinely.
Wow.
But
Recent NYU grad, right?
probably.
Yeah. Okay.
So I see like Gary posted this video and it was about like stay-at-home dads, but he was like, you don't know how many men I'm starting to talk to in DMs that want to be stay-at-home dads. But the beginning of the video is him just being like, you don't know how many men I'm starting to talk to. And I'm like, this
in
is
my DMs.
Yeah, and I was like, this is perfect promo for Mad Realities. Like, this is so on point. So I sent it to her. I'm like, just this clip, like, you don't know how many men I'm starting to talk to. I'm like, this is perfect for promo. And they put it up. But in the bottom right corner, it's very clear that the profile it was captured from is mine. Oh my God. I'm like, oh, Gary, I'm sorry.
You still like me, right?
But yeah, shout out GaryVee. I'm holding on to.
By the way, you maintained that motion the entire time you were talking that story. I'm like, he's just staying tethered to his childhood.
I put it down a little bit.
All right,
but,
I didn't notice.
When I went to make my first painting, I was in a really tough place. And I found myself there all the time. Like the reality is that a lot of mornings I get in the shower and I just say to myself, I'm like, you can't possibly just keep doing this every day. You can't possibly but then I find myself in the shower again the next day. I'm like, I made it another day, where it's like, I'm no stranger to feeling the world for all that there is to be felt, but so I was in a really hard place, and I decided I wanted to make a painting, because I wanted to get lost in something. And all those years, I had held on to that tether. I had held on to this thing, not even thinking that I was holding on to something. and I go to draw the only thing that I've ever drawn. And as I pull that in closer and closer and closer, I find myself in that place of wonder. And there are so many different ways to describe this feeling. Somebody that I trust a lot told me that we are born into divinity and that we are conditioned out of it.
Do you believe in God?
I don't. I wish I did. I might. Who knows?
Yeah, I might decide to one day because it seems better.
Maybe I do. What is God? I don't know. I believe that there is so much that we don't understand, and I don't want to embarrass myself by acting like I have it figured out. And with that, maybe what we don't understand is God, and we just, we use a lot of different names. But I pulled myself to this place of whatever that wonder and divinity that we're born with such a close connection to at such an early age. I found myself there because of this great miracle, this great mistake that I had developed a muscle memory that could take me back there.
Living a bankless life requires taking control over your own private keys. And that's why so many in the Bankless Nation already have their Ledger hardware wallet. And brand new to the Ledger lineup of hardware wallets is the Ledger Nano S Plus, a huge upgrade to the world's most popular hardware wallet. With more memory and a larger screen, the Nano S Plus makes it easy to navigate and verify your transactions. And the paired Ledger Live desktop app gives you increased transparency as to what is about to happen with your NFT. What you see is what you sign. The Nano S Plus gives you the smoothest possible user experience while you're doing all of your crypto things. So go to the Ledger website to check out the features of the new Ledger Nano S Plus and join the waitlist to get yours. And don't forget about the Crypto Life card, also powered by Ledger. The CL card is a crypto debit card that hooks right into the Ledger Live app, right next to all the DeFi apps and services that you're already used to doing, like swapping tokens and staking. So if you don't have a Ledger hardware wallet, go to ledger.com, grab a Ledger, and take control over your crypto. It's increasingly obvious that everything will become tokenized, and NFT marketplaces needs robust financial reporting, performance analysis, and the peace of mind that they are compliance ready. Guilded's NFT Ops is a one-stop financial reporting solution for growing NFT platforms. Guilded has developed marketplace-specific modules to track the financial performance of NFT creators, including revenue tracking, collection metrics, royalty payments, and revenue share. Customers of NFT Ops gain full access to accounting tools and powerful APIs for custom integrations that simplify operations, streamline reporting, and produce tax-ready data. So no wonder why so many top brands like CoinMarketCap, Gitcoin, Nifty's, and POAP trust Guilded to automate complex reporting workflows. Visit gilded.finance/bankless to learn more.
So what did you want to be when you grew up, when you were 13, 14, 15, pre-discovering painting?
I wanted to make music at some points. I think I found myself so overwhelmed at so many points that I was so much thinking about the now, not about what's ahead.
The next.
But when I did think about it, I was like, I want to be a rock star or something like that.
Do you play an instrument?
Yeah, I can play a lot of instruments, actually.
You strike me as someone who, you've got that kind of mad genius talent thing where it's like, I just picked it up, and what do you mean it's hard?
Yeah, I mean, well, so the first instrument that I learned was drums, and then anything else, like drums and mathematics are the same, the construction of a beat is math. And from there, because I learned drums so young, I must have been 5 years old, so many other things that I approached in my life, I was like, this is really just drums. This is really just math. This is so.
That's not how it works for most people, though. You realize, right? Like, that's not like a normal thing. That it's like, well, of course now I can play the guitar. It's just math.
Yeah. Well, I guess think of it this way. With drums, there is a sense of this is where I'm supposed to hit, and at this time. And perhaps there are 9 drums on a, I don't know what kits people are rocking with. I guess an average kit is actually 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But then, you got the cymbals, so it adds up. And I was really big on let me add a cowbell, let me add a woodblock until there's more and more places for me to hit. You pick up a guitar and it's like, okay, there's just more drums. There's just more drums. And it's still the same hitting on a rhythm. So I did find it somewhat approachable and easy to pick up new instruments.
So you always wanted to be artistic. Like, you were clearly always artistic. Not that that would have been in question, but even if you did think about your future, it would have been in the arts in some form. A personal question, which you can decline to answer or we can cut, or I don't know if you've said it publicly. Did you graduate from high school?
I did.
Okay.
And I didn't want to go to my graduation because I had already started doing my art stuff while I was in high school. And I had, I had gone on tour to Coachella and was directing.
You were on tour.
Yeah, while I was
in
in
what
high
capacity?
School. I was creative directing and doing the artwork for Portugal the Man.
Okay.
And they were headlining Coachella, so we got to share that moment. And so I had, the creatures so big at Coachella, and then I'm doing my first show in New York while I'm still in high school. I'm not living in New York. And I was just like, yeah, I'm not I was going to go to college because I thought that's what you're supposed to do. They tell you, you finish high school, you go to college, and then you get that piece of paper that says you're ready to do whatever you're trying to do. And I realized, wait, I'm already doing it.
Yeah.
It sounds like I'm gonna have to stop doing what I'm already doing for somebody to tell me that I'm allowed to.
Totally.
So I was like, I'm not going to college. I'm gonna move to New York. And why did I want to move to New York? Because I was just that's where the people are. I want people.
Yeah, you're in the town in your closest city is in some ways New York, probably, right? You're in the town of 5,000. You're like, get me out, get me to where the people are.
I'm
where it's happening.
I'm if I have something that I want to be experienced by people, I have to go where people exist. But it came time for high school graduation, and I was like, I'm not gonna go. And my mom was my teacher in high school.
Were you homeschooled, or she just was a teacher at the local school?
That's a funny question. Yeah, she was a teacher at the school.
Okay.
My mom was my teacher. And the funny thing is, my home was also my father's business. So I would go home to I would go home to dad's business and go to school to mom's business.
Kind of a lot.
Yeah, I know. I liked it. But it gave me a lot of opportunity to learn from my creators, Yeah. But so I told my mom, I was like, yeah, I don't want to go to graduation. And she was like, Danny, for me, she considered it to be her greatest achievement of her life that I graduated high school. And she was like, just let me have this moment of people knowing that you graduated. And the headmaster of my school, is my father and him are around each other at graduation, and they're shaking hands, I guess, and he's like, we're really gonna miss Dan. And my dad's like, really?
Are you? Were you a troublemaker?
I got in a lot of trouble.
Okay. Any stories you can share publicly?
I don't want to. Okay. But maybe, I don't know. I mean, they're all so funny, but maybe for another day. But
Okay.
but yeah, it was funny. My dad was like, "Really?" And
Yeah,
then the
you're
head
gonna
hostess
miss
was
him?
like,
For the
"Well, I guess
entertainment.
not." I guess
Like,
not.
you caught me.
You got me.
Which
like,
he's gone.
I'm so ready for him to go.
Wait, so let me just timeline set here. So you're 17 and you make your first painting. 17 would be a junior in high school.
No, it's also a senior in high school.
You were a senior in high school.
I
You
don't
made
know.
your
I actually
somewhere
have
in
no
there.
idea.
Okay,
But like,
I'm just
you're
trying to
a
get to
senior
the point that
17.
you start painting and you're touring Coachella. It must have been within essentially a year of each other.
Yeah.
So that's so wild. So, can you just fill in those gaps a little bit?
I can.
Well, as a matter of fact, I was there.
That's what you want. Yeah, you know, I started painting because I was so lonely. Like that's like where I was at. I was so lonely. And I needed something somewhere to get lost in. And I found that place. I found that place the second time I made a painting. And it was this very spiritual experience. And it's funny, I like never use the word spiritual, honestly. Like, is this cringe? Who knows? Looking at Connor, my spiritual yogi, my vegan spiritual yogi, hitting my dying jewel for a second.
Yeah. We're getting deep here, you know? You gotta.
It's really dying. It's so sad. So I needed to get lost in something because, with my eyes open, looking around me, I just couldn't bear the way that I felt. You know, just what life felt like. So I started painting. You know, first with just the intent to get like lost, I guess. All of a sudden, this place that felt and looked so happy to me was becoming real right in front of me. And because I could see it, I was like, this is real. And as I would make these paintings, I'm like going on this journey inside of my mind. Maybe it's not my mind. I don't know. Maybe it's real. But I'm finding myself somewhere else, somewhere that feels much better. And at a certain point, I was like, I found something amazing. And if anybody else was feeling this right now, we would look at each other in our eyes and there would be this moment of, did you just feel that? Did you just see that? This is amazing. But I would have these amazing moments on my bedroom floor and I'd look around me and there would be nobody there, you know? And I was like, you know, I need this to be real. What is reality? Which camera? What is reality? Well, reality is whatever we agree upon. It's
Same
reality.
as money.
Reality, yeah. Reality is shared. And I was like, I want other people to experience these pictures. And I understood, here is my picture. And there are people in the world. I got to bring my picture to those people. One by one by one, I got to do it. And I could tell you a whole story of every way that I went about doing that, but everything is summed up by this. There was something that I wanted people to see, and I asked, where are they? And I brought it to them.
You just hustled.
Yeah, I mean, you could call it that. Or you could call it talking. You could call it having a conversation. You could call it spreading your wings. And most people that I reach out to, and I said, hey, I have something amazing. Do you see it? Like, do you see it too? Like, would you show this to anybody? Most people never answered, like maybe 99%. But all I wanted was one, and I got a few. I got a few people that answered me and said, I see it. And let's do something. One of those people took me under his wing and said, I'm going to help you throw your first show. And taught me this amazing lesson. It's the most important lesson. Maybe it's not. Maybe there are more important lessons. One of the most important lessons I've ever learned, which is, it's definitely the most important lesson for somebody that wants to do something. I feel like we're taught that you got to get your foot in the door. You got to get your foot in the door, and then you got to be let in. And what this dude taught me was, look through the door. What's happening on the other side of that door? You can do that. Those people don't have a different brain than you. What are artists trying to do? As far as I can see, knowing nothing, what are artists trying to do? They're trying to show in a gallery. What does a gallery do? Put a painting on a wall, and they invite some people to come see it, to come experience it. I don't know about you, but I actually know how to use a hammer.
I'm familiar with nail hammer dynamics.
And I actually also know how to write down an address with a date and time. And I know how to hand that to some people. And that's
You're
what we
a genius,
did.
Danny Cole.
Thank you so much. I agree. And we did it. And without the context of this world telling us you can't, that would not be miraculous whatsoever.
Yeah.
But it's something that so many people, myself included at some points in time, could not fathom, that you can just do it. But we did. And I was like, oh my God, you're telling me anything that I want to do, I can just be like, and we're going to do it? And we can figure that out? And that's what happened. And with Portugal the Man, they did the same thing, and I know it's on purpose because I do it too.
Yeah.
Now, where John the singer was like, you're gonna have to make all this stuff, and I was like, I don't know how to make all this stuff. So if you could give me any people to assist me, obviously. And he said, no, you'll figure it out.
And you did?
Like way better. yeah, absolutely, way better. Thank God thank God I learned those lessons. And the real lesson here is like, truly, anything is possible if you want it to be. And there is, there's so much more that could be elaborated on that, but genuinely, firmly, against any argument that somebody could make against me, anything is possible.
Have you read the book?
No.
That's an indication that you're not a big reader.
I'm not.
Okay. Well, I was only going to raise it because it's a book called The War of Art. And I mentioned it, I'm reading it, and I mentioned it to Fuocious, and they were like, oh my God. Like, he was like, I've literally, I read that book at 14. I love that book. It's like why I'm the artist that I am today. So I was wondering if this had made its rounds in genius artist circles, and I'm the last person to find it, but it sounds like no.
When I was in 5th grade, I was in English class and they had us reading this book where these kids like snuck into a museum in the middle of the night. And
I know the book because
Yeah.
I also read it in fifth grade.
yeah.
And I can't remember the name of it.
And the brother and sister are like eating some chocolate bar that they found, and the sister's scared, like, oh, you can't eat that. And I remember reading some passage, and I know what passage it was, but I won't bore you. And I thought to myself, I cannot fucking believe that they have me doing this. I will never do this again. And I never read a book again. All of high school, all of middle school, I did not buy a single book for school. I did not read a page. I was like, I'm not doing this again. And I didn't. And I stuck to it. I did actually wind up.
I can see why your mom was so excited you were graduating high school.
I wound up reading one book, though, in recent years. And it was because my friend was like, it's just like the creatures. There's this one part that's just like the creatures. And I read it and I was like, yeah, it really is just like the creatures. I like this. I'm not going to say the name of the book because I don't want to encourage reading.
Oh my God. Okay. What's so funny to me about that is like, for me, the getting lost in another world thing is books. You know, like that is such a sanctuary to me. So that's hilarious that
Yeah,
is,
no, you're so right. But
very
like,
much not that.
but for me, I'm like, I want us to get lost in other worlds together. You know.
Well, and that's, you know, to bring it, I guess, back around to creatures and as the world evolves. I mean, that must be something that feels so exciting to you about the metaverse and about.
What is the metaverse?
Yeah, well, you know what I
Is
heard?
the metaverse real?
I heard a really interesting, I don't know what you want to say, definition of the metaverse. That's probably overstating it, but I think it's the CEO of RARIBLE, Metaverse investing company. Anyhow, she made the point that right now, if I like go on to whatever Aritzia's website to go shopping for clothes, and my best friend is also on Aritzia's website shopping for clothes, like I don't know that, but that the metaverse in the future will be that everything's sort of interactive, and where like if I'm shopping for clothes with Aritzia and my best friend also happens to be there, like I'll be aware of that because we'll be connected in some platform.
What websites I'm on.
Well, only if I'm there too, you know. So you know.
Yeah.
So the point being, like, you know, and I'm, you know, optionality in that, I guess, right? We all want our privacy to some extent, but like that connectivity. Right now, again, talking about one-way, two-way streets. Right now, the internet is very much like I go to it and I'm alone there, and that those barriers will be broken down. I thought that was a really interesting way to put it.
I really genuinely like the direction of this idea of like the metaverse actually seeming to highlight. But it seems that this idea of a metaverse is highlighting more so interpersonal connection digitally instead of being like I'm speaking to everyone and I'm hearing from everyone. I like the direction of like that one-on-one connectivity. It's cool to me.
Where are you seeing that in the metaverse? Because I feel like the metaverse is sort of everyone.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's just the idea that like if we're going to kind of pull a lot of what it means to live in this world and replicate that digitally, I like that I can sit down and have a conversation with you. I go on Twitter, I have a conversation with you. It's for everybody, you know? You know, I
think you're describing private chats, though.
No, and you could say that 100%. I understand, but I like the idea of more of the time that we spend online highlighting our interpersonal connectivity more. As like, you know, I'm seeing the metaverse version of you, but I'm seeing you. Also, there's like quite literally not a metaverse. Like the metaverse does not exist, and
well, if you just define it as the point of time when we start spending more of our time digitally than IRL, then we're all in the metaverse.
Is that what it's being defined as, though?
Well, it depends on who you ask. I mean, it's become one of these words that means different things to different people, and I think ultimately, I don't think that'll always be true. I think ultimately that we will have a clearer picture of like what we consider the metaverse?
Yeah. I mean, I like saying it like as a joke, like, you know.
Well, is Creature World intended as a metaverse? I mean, the word world would lend itself very well to a creature metaverse.
Creature World wants to exist, and Creature World is excited to approach any way to actualize itself, but it's not specifically intending to be a metaverse.
Okay. So this is so interesting because, of course, you're speaking about Creature World as if it's an abstraction separate from you and you are not its creator, which I understand the divinity, like it sort of arises from you. I'm sure there's lots of different, very interesting ways you could articulate that. But it actually gets to something that I think is so fascinating about you, and I want to like put this observation about you out there and just see what your response is, which is folks who've maybe heard you in Twitter Spaces, heard you at moments as an interview, encountered you, like you have this ethereal like quality that's very kind of divine, like kind of out there, almost kind of disconnected from like the world, you know, like you're in your own universe.
Yeah.
And yet, and I think that's a beautiful thing about you, I should say. And yet, you're obviously very successful at a pretty young age, which means you're ambitious. And I don't think you're cutthroat because I think you're kind, but like to be successful like this at such a young age, like you're sitting there writing the emails or whatever it was. Like how do you balance this? Or I don't know that they're competing, but I think that's very interesting. That balance of sort of like I'm in another world, but also like I'm here and I'm fucking killing it.
Well, you know, I'm definitely not cutthroat.
Okay. But let me tie that to the point you just made, which is you're describing Creature World as if it's something separate from you.
Yeah.
And that's kind of ethereal and kind of another universe-y. But like you're making it happen and you've got a lot of fans and you're gonna drive the thing in the direction it goes in.
Yeah.
It's that sort of reconciliation.
Well, I'm here to serve, you know. Like it's funny, I literally said to Connor yesterday, I was like, they need to know that we're like self-aware when we're putting out this statement. We're like,
when you're putting
out this like announcement for like some stuff that's coming, and I was just like, let's make clear like that we understand how big or not big of a deal this is, so they know like, because I'm like, I think people don't think that I'm self-aware.
Well, maybe that's what I'm getting at is like you almost give that impression, but I know you really like. You can't get to where you are right now in life without being self-aware. I mean, maybe you can, but I don't think so. I think you're very bright, you know, and you know what's going on in the world.
Thank you. The art pieces that I've made that I would be most proud to share, I struggle to feel proud of as the creator of, because I feel like I cannot take credit. I think a lot of people have that experience of like, you know, I'm just a sponge, and I'm noticing something that I really, really care about, and it is my responsibility as a human being to try to elevate that, because I understand that if this made me feel good, you know, this will make my neighbor feel good. This will make my sister feel good. We owe each other. We owe each other so much. I've heard people say like the things that you're saying right now, and I kind of just like I kind of brush it off, because I'm like, they don't realize, but they're literally just like me, you know, like, and
in what sense? Like we all have our fantasy. Like I like fantasy worlds, or what are you describing?
No, not that. How different can you and I really be?
Well, in the scheme of the world, yeah, for sure.
In the scheme of, when I tell you I'm anxious, you know what that means.
Oh yeah.
When I tell you this is the happiest I've ever been, I wanted to cry, you know what that means. Our human experience is as close to identical, in terms of like what we are capable of experiencing. I feel like all of us have our amazing, unique differences that allow everyone to be this well of knowledge that you have the opportunity to learn from. But the things that make us similar are greater, in my opinion.
And it might be also the level, I think, of your authenticity, right? Like it feels like you're very just like yourself. And not everyone, we're all in different stages of being able to be ourselves, So that's something, perhaps. Okay, I'm going to turn this back to Creature World. So we've established we don't know what the metaverse is. Therefore, Creature World may or may not be gearing itself up to be a metaverse. We've talked about...
The metaverse is just like the metaverse is a buzzword.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we can agree with that. And we can still think, though, that there are interesting ideas that are worth talking about that require the word metaverse to have the conversation.
Like what?
Like a conversation about, will we end up in Ready Player One? I think that's an interesting conversation. Do we end up in a world where we're all like sit in Oculuses or some other brand? And like to have that conversation without using the word metaverse.
Are we there right now?
Are we well, that's... Don't take it there, Danny. I'm trying to talk about Creature World.
Yeah.
Trying to talk about your art.
Yeah.
Okay. Creature World Lab. I'm gonna miss that. I'm mixing that up because I don't have my notes in front of me. Creature World.
We call it Yuga Labs.
I am Cosmo de Medici. Connor is the head of Creature World. Is it a lab?
Connor is the head of Creature Labs.
Creature Labs.
Say.
Okay. So tell me what Creature Labs is, and what you guys are building.
Let's just talk. Let me run you through. Let me run through a few things really concisely. Creature World started about 5 years ago with this idea that an amazing magical world could be made real, and that it could be a place for people to escape to together, and it could be a place where we could see each other so clearly, with these sort of avatars of our souls as the creatures. Even when it started from this place of paintings, it was these really open-ended paintings that had so much thoughtful consideration of, let me put this in a place where I'll be able to see myself in it. You'll be able to see yourself in it. This is a bridge. This is a connector. We will be seeing each other. I throw my first show, and there's this amazing lesson of, I can do this. I can do this. There's also this amazing lesson of, I don't want to do this. Damn, this is so fucking boring. Putting paintings on a wall. Is this really? If the goal is to make a world real and to have us all be able to go there, is this the most effective way to go about that? And the answer was glaring no. So the next show that I threw was this real immersive experience. And then the next one, more and more. And I could get into the details of what these shows were. And they were everything from painting scenes from a story and telling the story live, collaborating with chefs to make meals where the ingredients were designed to solicit a physical reaction that would carry you further into the story, each dish corresponding with another chapter, to writing plays and performing these plays inside of an art installation while the audience is also inside of an art installation of the creature world too, with live musical scoring from 4 bands, and every intermission is a rock and roll concert. There are all these different ways to say, hey, how can we bring this world to life? How can we make this real? Defining reality as being this shared experience. COVID comes and I'm like, everything that I have planned, everything that I have been figuring out how to do, I can't do it anymore. What am I going to do? And there was this massive need for connectivity when the only tools that we had to connect were digital. And perhaps COVID made that come now, but let's zoom out. That's the direction that we've been moving in. So we asked ourselves, how can we create art where its home is these screens, this telltale sign of separation, degrees of separation between us? How can we use this to get even closer? Not only compensating for the separation, but actually getting closer than we even are oftentimes sitting in front of one another. And there comes Creature World, self-titled, because it's the first thing that deserved to be self-titled. The Beatles put out The Beatles. It wasn't their first album. We call it the White Album. It deserved to be called The Beatles.
I don't know. I like Abbey Road and Sgt. Pepper's better, but
Shut up.
Stop talking, fiend. Debate that another time.
Yeah.
No, that's interesting. Continue. I'm loving what you're doing here.
We come and we say, well, how can we grab all of the tools available and create things that will unite us with what we see as being why we're here? That is to feel, to discover, to connect with one another, to empathize, to see and to be seen. And as a result of the new potential created by all of this very new, actively unraveling technology around Web3, we got to say, well, we're going to make some first of its kind art pieces that have the ability to take all of this connectivity that has been explored through art and say, well, what does it look like to take that to new levels? Or perhaps just experiment, because it's not really for me to decide what is a level up. I know it's a level up to me. So, there's the initial Creature World collection, and the initial Creature World collection, we spoke about, or maybe this is going to be out of order. So
we may or may not have already spoken about.
There's the ability to enter that world inside of your art and have your engagement with your art actually respond to you in what your art is, in your art evolving, to become more like you, to answer you. Then we have Creature Labs. And it's all the same thing. It really is all the same thing, but it's helpful to organize sometimes. And Creature Labs is literally a laboratory of creating new ways for us to participate with the things that we think matter so much. The most recent thing that we did with Creature Labs was called the Traveling Creature. And the Traveling Creature follows this story of a spirit that was born in the middle of the woods. And a spirit's only way to exist and adventure and travel is through living beings. So when a spirit is born, it enters the heart of a living being. And as we go about our days and interact with one another, the spirit will travel from me to you, to whoever you interact with, to them, to them. And here we have this story of a spirit that was born in the middle of the woods, entirely alone, and had no way to travel, which was its destiny, to travel. So time goes by and it's unable to fulfill its destiny. So this energy is building up and it's just growing and getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger until this spirit is as tall as the treetops. And this creature in a nearby village looks out in the distance and it sees something odd peeking out from the treetops. And it goes closer to inspect and it starts walking into the woods. And this creature and the spirit meet. And the spirit grabs the creature and flows into it. And all of a sudden, the spirit has a way to travel. And the creature screams and it runs back to the village. And, this is the start of the spirit being able to travel, fulfill its destiny. It's the traveling creature. Because you know what? The spirit's a creature too. It's complicated.
Meta.
So we took the spirit from that story and we made it into a token. And, it's easy to get lost in these technological terms. I believe that the best products are the ones where you're so immersed in the product that you don't really care. Is this a token? What is this? It's a spirit. That's what it is, And so we have this spirit. And perhaps I start out with the spirit. When I send it to you, because, the idea is that the spirit would continue to be passed on from person to person, creature to creature. I have something in my eye. When I send it to you, there is this really meaningful gesture and connection of us engaging with one another. I give you the spirit. That memory of that interaction between us is immortalized. We made it so when I send you the spirit, it generates a new art piece of my creature and your creature together automatically. And it gives it to me to remember when I reached out to you. And now you have the spirit and you give the spirit to Andrew Yang. And that interaction between you and Andrew Yang exists forever now. And it deserves, these little interactions that we have with each other deserve that level of care, that because they are so meaningful. And we're immortalizing them by making it so these new art pieces are being created as a result of our interactions with one another. What we wound up with was in 6 days, like almost 2,500 of these art pieces being created. And now we took the traveling creatures back home. We're giving them a moment to rest. And then we're going to send them back out again. When I send you the traveling creature, the art piece that's created is my creature with its blue and desert yellow and its cloud suit and its hearts on its cheeks in all of its glory, actually floating in a way that it's compelled towards your creature, which is equally compelled towards mine, with all of the features that make your creature yours. And every time this spirit is passed around. It's this chain that's created from one person to the next person to the next person to the next person. These new pieces are being created. It is a progression of the current artwork that you have, an acknowledgement of the connectivity with everybody else that's on this journey with us, and a reason for us to unite with one another. That's the traveling creature.
So that's awesome. So I didn't participate in.
Fuck?
I was tracking Traveling Creature, and it's been such a crazy week. So I wanted to. But here's what I was gonna say. I reached out to my chat on Discord called Creature Crew, which we formed when you did the playground.
Hell yeah.
And so what I was gonna say is the pedestrian version, or I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but Danny would say this in a very beautiful way, and what I would just say is it's a community building exercise, which is but it's not. But I was gonna say in the realist way possible, so to tell you my experience with Playground, I'll bring it to Traveling Creature. You did a thing where you airdropped everybody who held a creature a different piece of what turned out to be a creature playground, and there was a mushroom, and there was a swing set, and there whatever it was, 6 or 7 pieces, and then what you were supposed to do as the individual was to group up with everybody who had the piece you didn't have, so that you would have a complete set for this playground. And you had to give all of the individual pieces. You had to give your piece to one person within that group of, call it 7 people. And then if one person had them, they could log in and basically say, we have all the pieces. And then in return, you would get your playground. What was so cool about this, and again, this will get me to Traveling Creature, was, and to your point about people having this market mindset, you've got Creature, this very hot project. You've got GaryVee has talked about it. Shaq, I don't know if Shaq at that point had his Creature or not. I think he did. It was right around the same time, because everyone was is Shaq in my Creature playground group?
Shaq was in my group.
Okay, classic. And so there was this question of this thing I was just airdropped. Does this have value? And you just want me to send this to what was, for in most cases, certainly in my case, a stranger? I just have to trust this stranger with this piece of thing that I was airdropped that might have value. And it was so cool. And we all were on our Discord group. We named it Creature Crew, right? And I was one being all right, I know it's not this space to do this, but I'm not going to send you my thing if we're all just a non. Who are you guys? And then I talked about I'd worked for Andrew Yang. They're oh my God, we love Yang. And then we kind of became this little group that we were talking and hanging out. And of course, we all sent our things and got our playgrounds back. And it was another moment where I was oh my God, this is exactly what Danny is intending. And so many pieces have been connecting up for me as you've been talking, and as you set out this whole story in some ways, saying it was, how can we make these screens a tool for connection, as opposed to this thing separating us all now that we're in COVID and you can't do your immersive experiences. I was hearkening to, oh my gosh, that's exactly what happened for me with this playground thing. I was this is so cool. I'm meeting these people, and they like Yang, and and we're having this connective experience because you forced that, in this very cool way. So now I'll fast forward. So when the Traveling Creature was happening, it's been a really busy week for me. I was tracking what was happening, but I hadn't done probably all the things I needed to do. And so I popped back into Creature Crew, which every so often sparks back to life. Somebody sends something in there. And I was are you guys doing Traveling Creature? I want the creature. If one of you guys gets the Traveling Creature, my ETH address is open basically to be sent it, and I'll send it to one of you. So I totally know you're it's not a community building exercise. That sounds we're doing free fall exercises at our corporate retreat. But it's a really cool way to build a community and force, in the best sense, people to interact and connect with one another.
It's art serving its purpose. Yeah. I love hearing that story from you. It hurts a little bit that with all of the financial incentives within the NFT space, that you have to compete with financial incentives. It's just such incredibly different things that are being made, but the same area of our brain, the same amount of attention, that we have is it has to be delegated. I've been plotting and planning and making the things that I think will be the most exciting. A win for me is that whatever we make is so exciting that I'm excited about it.
Yeah.
And that everybody is very excited about it. Excitement is a great motivator.
So I'm going to circle it back. I brought up this book, The War of Art, which is what prompted me to learn that you don't read.
I'm illiterate.
Yeah. I can't read. And I think you would enjoy it should you ever decide to venture into a book again. It's short. It's like, the pages will have like half whatever. You're not going to read it. Got it. But what's so interesting, it's basically, and now this is going to be the second time on a second podcast that I'm explaining this to people, and it's kind of a weird book to explain, so I apologize to the listeners. But essentially, it's like this writer's journey with what he calls resistance, which he very much treats as distinct from himself and abstract from himself, which is like all of the urges that I think most creators deal with, that like to not produce, the procrastination, the fear that it won't be perfect, whatever they actually are, he personifies in this character of resistance. And then he personifies this character of the muse, which was sort of reminding me of things you were saying, because the muse just comes, right? And the point of the book essentially is that if you just do the work and you show up every day and force yourself to do it and be kind of disciplined about your art, the muse will come, the inspiration will come, whatever, and you don't have to force it. And what this gets me to is I'm curious, you seem like somebody who just produces and just like prolifically produces. And I think you may be one of those unicorns, but I'm curious about your artistic process. Are there days where you're like, I don't want to do this, but I have to because this is now my job and what I do is produce art? Or for you, is it always just like, it's inspiration?
No, there are not those days.
Really?
Yeah.
You always just want to produce and create?
Well, I remember there was a time when I'd started off with The Creature. And I thought to myself, did I just trap myself? I have to do The Creature forever now? This is fucked. So I said, you know what? As scary as this leap is, I'm going to separate myself from this commitment to The Creature. And I'm going to make what I really want to make. Let me find out what that is. Turns out it was The Creature.
This story has a happy ending.
I figured out really fast. I was like, okay, it's important that I'm making what I want to make. And the answer to that really is, it's The Creature, but I just needed to know that that was really what I wanted to be doing. And there are times when I'm like, wow, there's so much pressure.
Was that what I asked about? Pressure?
Yeah, I know. I remembered. But
you just said the word. You were like,
yeah,
I'm going to give her a little reminder.
Wow, there's so much pressure, this and that. Any reason for me to be like, I need to take a step back. When I take a step back and say, okay, Danny, it's time to take care of yourself. What do you want to do? It's making things. It's making things. And it's important to have those moments of like, all right, I'm done. What do I want to be doing? And for me, it's always the same thing. It's always like, I want to be moving. I want to be making. It's what makes me happy, There's a very interesting thing that is, and I realized it was interesting from the reaction of this reporter when I said it to her.
Okay.
The article's not out yet, so maybe you should have published it faster.
Scooping you.
There is a first of its kind impact on mental health that I think I'm getting one of the first windows into that in some way, shape, or form is going to become really widespread. For me as a creator, I am in one of these unique first positions where in real time, anything I say or do will affect the market price of creatures. And anything I don't say will affect the market price of creatures. Morale, anything. It's real-time response. And it's an understanding that if I am not living up to expectation, the people that will hurt the most are the people that have shown the most care to me.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah. And it's now more real time and responsive than it's ever been able to be before.
Because the comps are CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, not even just Fortune 500, public companies. If I'm a CEO of a public company, you saw this when Elon Musk went on to Joe Rogan and smoked weed and Tesla's share price does something, right? But you're right that it's not as quick, it's not as responsive, it's not the same. It's people who have typically spent like decades kind of getting themselves to that position. You're an artist who's been thrust into this, and that's wild.
And I speculate that in some way, shape, or form, this experience that I have is going to be shared by just the average person.
Well, and here's also why this is going to grow, because the beauty of crypto is the creator empowerment piece. And we talk about sometimes like the tokenization of everything, and creators now in a greater way than ever before are able to have financial success and tokenize their work or their career, not just not just artists. The flip side of that is exactly what you're describing, which is if they've tokenized something of their work, they have a whole body of people that they're beholden to or who expect something from them beyond just that quid pro quo.
I went from being thrust into adulthood, moving to New York, being like, damn, I don't know if I can take care of myself. In the moment, it's like, well, I guess financially I can take care of myself. Now I got to take care of thousands and thousands of people. That's if there, I don't know a greater motivator to be like, all right, let's step up to the plate. And I'm happy it's me in this position because I really do care. A lot of people don't,
Yeah.
And I hope that people are looking out for themselves. I hope that people are taking care of themselves.
This ties into this question about the pressure and the feeling of the outside world wants you to do one thing or expects one thing, and how do you stay true to what your sense of a true north is?
What's the metaphor? Henry Ford. Henry Ford said, if I asked the people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses.
Yeah. Oh, I love this for so many reasons I'll tell you, but that's beautiful.
Yeah. What I want is to serve to the best of my ability. So I'm pretty comfortable with that. I am up for this, and I'm not going anywhere. And there's this very weird thing in the NFT space specifically, where it seems like people have to make this promise of like, I'm going to continue this forever. I'm going to continue this forever. Like, most of these people and most of these projects are not going to continue forever And I think that it's really honestly better if people set like, yo, this is the start, this is the journey, this is the end.
I totally agree. I've said this in the podcast before. I've asked guests who have projects, like, doesn't the foreverness, like, don't you feel that there's this foreverness pressure that's being put on you, and doesn't that scare you? Because when I get asked, like, why don't you do an NFT drop for your podcast? I'm like, I'm not ready for that commitment at all. Like, because I'm not ready to commit. I love doing the show. I want to do the show or some version of this kind of forever, as far as I know right now. But like, I agree. It's too much pressure we're putting on people.
But hear me out. You ready?
Yeah.
Forever is not actually that long. Forever is not that long. How old am I really gonna get?
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it's a lot less scary when you think about the scope of something like 80 years.
It's a lot scary when you think about dying.
Exactly. It's a lot less scary when you think about the scope of, like, if anything, thinking about how long I have to live, I'm like, that's not that much time. I gotta move fast if I want to fit in all the things that I'm trying to do in this life. And some of the biggest things that I want to do, I'm afraid I'm not going to get to do during this lifetime,
What are some of those big things?
I genuinely want to go to another planet that is like filled with life, a new forms of life that I'm not familiar with yet, plant life, animal life, maybe something different. And I want to just discover. And I'm afraid that I won't be able to do that, and that makes me sad.
Come on, Elon. We're rooting for you, bud.
But at some point, somebody will be able to.
Yeah.
I hope, for some reasons, I hope that comes now. I also understand the great filter theory. I understand that discovering alien life could actually be really bad for us. Whatever. Fuck it.
I want them aliens. Yeah.
But for somebody like me, where the rest of my life is undeniably tied to creature world, at a certain point, we can end the experiences related to this collection of 10,000 artworks, and anything I do the rest of my life will continue to contribute to it.
Totally.
It's not the case for a lot of things.
Yeah.
But there are cases. I'll say it. I'm impressed with Yuga Labs, and I think that Yuga Labs is doing really cool things that will do really good things for Bored Apes. I'm not here to talk down on any projects. I'm only talking about positives. Like, the exceptions are all of the other ones.
How much of the next journeys that creatures will go on through Creature Labs or elsewhere do you have planned? Do you have thought out? Can you share anything?
There's a lot. What I really want to be able to maintain is whatever people think we're gonna do, I don't want to do it. Because that sounds so fucking boring.
Then you're giving them the faster horses.
Yeah, and I'm a human being. I give in sometimes, and I'm like, okay, you guys want more clarity? Let's give you more clarity. This is a framework. And it's like, as soon as we establish that framework, I'm like, all right, now let's break it.
Yeah. Well, I loved, and I've said on this podcast before, and other projects have sort of done this since, but you were the first project that I saw do it, where you were like, what was it? Did you have a roadmap? No, you had no roadmap, right? You were like, no roadmap. And then also this was it. It was the no roadmap. And then people were like, when rarity tools? And you were like, we're not fucking doing rarity tools. And I love that.
We were the first. Yeah, Give us our flowers.
So I think you were, right? And certainly for me that, and I was like, yes, I love that. And that was one of the reasons I wanted to buy in, because I was like, clearly you had a vision. And for me, it was so not about like, do I love this or do I love that? I've happened to love what you've done, but it was like, I want to support somebody with a specific vision. Like, you could just tell you're going to be here for the long haul. Like, you had a place you wanted to go with this. And I want to support anybody who like has that. And you being like, no to rarity tools, no roadmap at a time when it felt like that was everything.
Yeah.
I was so into that.
Thank you. I really
Yeah.
appreciate that. No, I definitely, what I'll tell you the future of Creature World is going to be is just like continuously coming out of left field. And there's a level of trust that you have to establish and in order to be able to do that. And it's never a linear path where for some people, when we put out The Creature's Journey, and that was this art experience, and people were more desiring a tangible, independently valuable asset, they were like, trust is broken. And for a lot of other people, it was like, I trust you.
Yeah.
Like this, I trust that this is like literally just different.
Yeah.
And that is what we will continue to be building.
Yeah.
There are like, I could give you insights to some of the stuff that's coming. But you know,
But fuck you, Carly.
It's like, how can you be excited when you know it's going to happen? You know, it's like, I'll give you an idea that we didn't start building, that I feel really tied to, that I'm going to make at some point.
Okay.
And it's artwork that destroys itself.
Ooh.
Yeah.
You thought change was hard. Wait till it self-destructs.
But we haven't, that's not what we're focused on right now.
Oh, okay. Well, I would.
Because it's like, I'm not going to tell you what we're doing right now.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
You'll come back. Very cool.
I'm going to make a cartoon show also.
So let me ask you that. We talk about the metaverse, put that word aside. Yeah, like, is that something that appeals to you, the idea of, and it would seem like it would if you want to get Creature World everywhere, like that style of distribution, shows, movies, etc.?
A show.
A show, okay, specifically.
Yeah.
Well, you don't watch either, I guess, right? So
Yeah,
how would you
but
even know what a show is?
I have in my life watched some television.
I've begrudgingly been entertained before and felt pleasure from
my
it.
mom was like, don't watch TV.
Oh, okay.
And I was like, okay. and my sister was, me and my sister responded very differently to things. My mom was like, don't watch TV. My sister was like, I'm really into TV.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I'm not watching TV. My mom was like, don't eat junk food. You got to eat healthy. And I was like, all right, I'm eating healthy. I do to this day. My sister was like, I like junk food. But, we all had the things that we chose to listen to because my mom was also like, don't sneak out and do drugs. And I was like, not that one.
The health food, the TV, reasonable.
But
you don't do drugs now. Do you feel like drugs were part of your artistic development?
No.
It was just an escape.
No. I was never addicted to drugs or anything like that.
Yeah.
No, I just all respect to people that enjoy drugs. I think that drugs are a powerful thing. I personally, with what I am looking to find in my life, I think that it's more likely that I'm going to find it in places that are more catered to me. I think it's more likely that I'm going to find what I'm looking for through shared experience, through dance, through meditation, through creation, maybe even through shocking myself, going and saying, I'm going to shoot a gun, like I'm, yeah.
Okay, last question. Does your headmaster know how successful you are now? Do people from your hometown know what you're doing?
I have no idea.
You don't know.
I have no idea.
would that feel satisfying?
No.
Okay. You're a better human than I am.
Yeah, I only have gratitude, you know.
You can still have gratitude and still be like, hey, you thought you were glad to see me gone. Well, look where I am now.
No,
Okay.
because like, had one moment of my life been different, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah, but that's, again, I think those are compatible ideas. You can feel grateful and be like, awesome, and also like, look, I made it.
Is this making it?
I guess you tell me.
I
feel like you've made it?
No. No, not at all. I'm like, I've taken the first step. Yeah, no, this is like patting myself on the back for doing the first problem on my homework, being like,
Yeah.
I did my homework. It's like, no, like, yeah, I don't know what anybody thinks. I don't know what I think, you know. I'm just following where I feel compelled, and trusting that feeling is probably wiser than me.
Danny Cole, thank you so much. Thanks for coming on. This is a pleasure. Like, I've just so loved getting to know you as somebody who admired you from afar and admired your work and the project, and now getting a glimpse into a little bit more about you. I'm really grateful for this. So thanks so much for coming.
Thank you so much for having me. This is super cool. I want to come back. Do you ever have
Yeah.
people twice?
I will absolutely have you twice. I have Zeneca, if you know Zeneca 33.
Yeah,
He's like
yeah.
a recurring guest that we do like recaps with, but like 100% come back.
Let's sit down, the three of us.
Okay.
Can we do one where nothing we say can be true?
That's an improv class, and
That's like today. That was like what we just did.
by the way, all of that was a lie.
By the way, I have an earpiece in my left ear.
And I'm just being fed things by Ellen DeGeneres.
Exactly. Free Ellen.
Hey, we hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, head over to Bankless HQ right now to develop your crypto investing skills and learn how to free yourself from banks and gain your financial independence. We recommend joining our daily newsletter, podcast, and community as a Bankless Premium subscriber to get the most out of your Bankless experience. You'll get access to our market analysis, our alpha leaks, and exclusive content, and even the Bankless token for airdrops, raffles, and unlocks. If you're interested in crypto, the Bankless community is where you want to be. Click the link in the description to become a Bankless Premium subscriber today. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for in-depth interviews with industry leaders, Ask Me Anythings, and weekly roll-ups where we summarize the week in crypto and other fantastic content. Thanks everyone for watching and being on the journey as we build out the Bankless Nation.